Imagine just for a moment that everything you were taught about spiritual power has only scratched the surface. Imagine that the greatest truth ever spoken by Jesus was not meant to be exalted in temples or locked behind rituals, but planted directly inside every human being. Think about the possibility that the words, "The kingdom of heaven is within you," were not a metaphor, not poetic symbolism, but a literal key capable of unlocking a reality far more profound than anything perceptible by the senses. If this is true, then understanding this message could transform the way you see yourself, your purpose, and the universe. And what you are about to hear in this journey is designed to lead you through layers of meaning that philosophers, mysticos, and seekers of truth have debated for centuries. The final insight, which we will explore at the end, is the most powerful of all, and it has the potential to change not only what you know, but who you are becoming. Before we enter this exploration, consider something. If this kingdom is within you, why does the world constantly distract you from looking inward? Why are we trained to seek answers outside, in institutions, in authorities, in doctrines, when Jesus himself pointed directly to the interior of the human soul? Scholars such as Elaine Pagels and Bart Ehrman have shown how early spiritual teachings were far more focused on self-realization than on external structures. Ancient hermetic philosophers declared that the divine spark existed within all creation, and mystics from multiple traditions insisted that the true temple was the inner world. All of these voices converge on one message. The deepest truths are found not through the eyes, but through awareness. This raises a profound question. If the kingdom is an inner dimension, then what does it mean to access it? Is it a state of consciousness, a spiritual awakening, a forgotten birthright? As we advance, we will uncover layers that connect the teachings of Jesus with ancient esoteric wisdom, revealing that this kingdom is not a distant paradise, but a hidden realm woven into the very fabric of your being. And yes, the final revelation of this video will be the most important, as it holds the essence of what Jesus intended to communicate. Before we continue, take a moment to support this journey. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment your thoughts, and share this video with someone who is seeking deeper understanding. Your engagement helps this message reach more people who feel the call for awakening. Stay with me until the end, because what you will discover here may reshape your understanding of life and the universe in ways you never imagined. Now, think about this. If the kingdom is within you, why do so many people feel empty, lost, or disconnected? How can something so divine exist inside a human heart filled with doubts, fears, and uncertainties? This paradox has intrigued scholars for centuries. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung believed that the inner world is layered, containing both shadow and light, unconscious forces, and divine potential. According to him, spiritual awakening happens when the individual merges these layers, discovering the hidden truth that the divine and the human are not separate realms, but interconnected realities. The Gospel of Thomas, one of the earliest and most mystical Christian texts, echoes this idea with the declaration that the kingdom is spread out upon the earth, but people do not see it. This suggests that the problem is not the absence of the kingdom, but the blindness of humanity to perceive it. The hermetic tradition, older than early Christianity, taught that the macrocosm and the microcosm mirror one another, meaning the universe is reflected in the human soul. If this is accurate, then the kingdom is not a place but a state of alignment, a resonance with a higher reality already within you, waiting to be awakened. As we continue this journey, allow yourself to question everything you thought you knew about heaven, salvation, and spiritual transformation. Ask yourself, could it be that the greatest secret Jesus shared was an invitation to discover the divine dimension inside yourself? Could it be that the path to this kingdom is not a set of external rituals, but an inner journey of awareness, truth, and awakening? Reflect on this deeply. Write your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the kingdom is a spiritual dimension hidden within? Have you ever felt moments where something inside you seemed greater, wiser, or more luminous than your everyday self? This is only the beginning. We are just opening the first doors. Ahead of us lies a deeper understanding of how this inner kingdom works, why it was hidden, and how you can begin to access it consciously. And remember, the final revelation will tie everything together in a way that may shift your spiritual perspective forever. Think about how many times humanity has searched for heaven somewhere far away, as if the divine were always distant, always unreachable, always reserved for a select few. Yet Jesus pointed inward, not upward. He did not say the kingdom will be within you someday, or that it is accessible only after death. He declared, it is within you now. This single statement disrupts centuries of externalized religion and redirects the seeker back to the inner sanctuary that mystics across cultures have always described. If heaven exists inside you, then what humanity truly lacks is not access, but awareness. And this is where our journey deepens. Because if the kingdom is within, the question becomes, how do you awaken to it? To explore this, imagine your inner world as a vast landscape that you rarely visit. Most people live on the surface of themselves, navigating daily routines, reactions, and emotions, without ever descending into the deeper layers where wisdom, clarity, and spiritual truth reside. Scholars such as Aldous Huxley suggested that the mind has reducing valves that filter reality, limiting perception to what is necessary for survival. But what if spiritual practice, contemplation, and introspection widen these valves, allowing you to perceive the divine dimension within? This idea appears not only in early Christian mysticism, but also in hermetic teachings, which assert that the human being contains a hidden spark capable of accessing higher realms of consciousness. The teachings of Jesus, when interpreted through this lens, become instructions for awakening. When he spoke of the pure in heart seeing God, he was not describing a reward in the distant future, but a state of perception available now. When he taught about being born again, he was not referring to physical rebirth, but to a transformation of awareness. The kingdom is not a place you go to, it is a level of consciousness you grow into. And the more you cultivate presence, humility, compassion, and truth, the more your inner world begins to reveal the divine light that has always been there. But why is this light hidden in the first place? Why is the kingdom veiled? Many spiritual traditions describe this as the human condition. The mind becomes distracted, fragmented, and consumed by fears and desires. The philosopher Meister Eckhart explained that the inner divine spark is often buried under layers of ego, attachment, and identity. According to him, the task of the seeker is to remove these layers, not to create the kingdom, but to uncover it. This mirrors the ancient hermetic belief that enlightenment is a remembrance, a recognition of something already present but forgotten. And modern psychology echoes this, suggesting that personal transformation often requires confronting inner shadows before accessing deeper truths. Ask yourself, what layers might be covering your own inner kingdom? What fears, habits, beliefs, or wounds might be obscuring the divine essence that Jesus said resides within you? Reflecting on these questions is not just an intellectual exercise, but an invitation to look deeply into your own soul. Comment what comes to your mind. Have you ever felt moments where you sensed something greater inside you, even if just for a brief instant? A moment of peace, clarity, intuition, or love that felt like it came from a higher source. Let us go further. If the kingdom is within, then every person carries a sacred potential, regardless of background, status, or past mistakes. This idea is revolutionary because it means divinity is not hierarchical. It does not belong to institutions, authorities, or rituals. It belongs to the human soul. Scholars like Karen Armstrong have argued that early Christian communities understood spirituality as a personal inner journey rather than a system of external commandments. Over time, structures developed around these teachings, but the original message pointed to direct experience. The kingdom was meant to be lived, not taught from a distance. This raises another profound question. What happens when someone begins to access this inner kingdom? The mystics say that life itself begins to transform. Perception changes, priorities shift, the heart becomes more attuned to truth, compassion, and purpose. Instead of seeking meaning outside, the individual begins to radiate meaning from within. And this aligns with the hermetic principle that the inner world shapes the outer world. When the inner kingdom awakens, the outer life begins to reflect its light. Throughout this video, we will continue to explore how this inner kingdom operates, how it can be accessed, and why understanding it may be one of the most important spiritual awakenings you will ever experience. And remember, the final insight we will uncover at the end is the most powerful one. the truth that ties everything together and reveals the deeper purpose behind the words of Jesus. When you begin to understand that the kingdom of heaven is not a distant realm but an inner reality, everything about the human experience takes on a different meaning. Think about this carefully. If the divine exists within you, then every challenge, every doubt, every shadow you face is not a barrier, but an invitation to go deeper. The spiritual journey stops being a search for something outside and becomes a process of unveiling what already lives in the depths of your being. This is why so many sages throughout history insisted that true enlightenment is an inward path. Jesus pointed to the center of the human soul because he knew that nothing external could give you what you already carry within. Consider how the world encourages you to look everywhere except inside yourself. Society teaches you to chase validation, success, approval, material achievements, and external security. But none of these pursuits can unlock the kingdom. The mystic Teresa of Avila compared the soul to a castle with many rooms, each representing a deeper level of awareness and intimacy with the divine. According to her, most people never enter the castle at all, living their lives outside of their own inner truth. This metaphor echoes the very heart of Jesus' teaching. The kingdom is not hidden from you, it is hidden within you, and only those who dare to turn inward can discover it. But this turning inward is not always comfortable. The inner journey often begins with confronting fears, wounds, and illusions that you have carried for years. The philosopher Henry Corbin described this inner realm as the imaginal world, a dimension that is as real as the physical world, but accessible only through the eyes of the soul. When you enter this realm, you begin to perceive that your inner struggles are gateways to transformation. What appears as pain may be a teacher. What seems like darkness may be the place where your deepest light is waiting to emerge. This idea aligns with the teachings of Jesus, who often spoke in parables that revealed hidden wisdom to those willing to seek beyond the surface. Imagine that your consciousness is a mirror. Over time, dust accumulates in the form of fears, judgments, insecurities, and attachments. The mirror does not lose its ability to reflect the divine light. It simply becomes clouded. The process of awakening the inner kingdom is the process of cleaning this mirror. This concept is found in the writings of the ancient philosopher Ibn Arabi, who taught that the heart becomes polished through introspection, love, and awareness until it reflects the divine truth clearly. When Jesus said the kingdom is within, he implied that your soul is already connected to the divine source. You do not need to import heaven into your being. You need to uncover what is already there. But how do you begin this uncovering? One step is to cultivate presence. When you become fully present, even for a moment, the noise of the world fades, and you become aware of a deeper stillness. Many spiritual teachers, including Eckhart Tolle, emphasize that presence is the doorway to the divine within. In moments of presence, you can feel something alive inside you, something untouched by fear or doubt. It may be subtle at first, like a quiet whisper, but the more you listen, the more it grows. This presence is not something you create. It is something you remember. It is the voice of the inner kingdom calling you home. Another step is to develop inner sincerity. Ask yourself questions that strip away illusions. What do you truly seek? What do you truly fear? What have you avoided confronting in yourself? These questions are not meant to judge you, but to reveal truth. Jesus often challenged his listeners not to follow dogma blindly, but to discern truth with their own hearts. This is why his teachings resonated so deeply with those who were ready for awakening and felt threatening to those who relied solely on external authority. When you seek sincerely, you open pathways that cannot be opened by ritual or tradition alone. As you progress on this path, something incredible begins to happen. You start to perceive the world differently. You begin to notice a subtle radiance in everyday life, a sense of meaning that flows through all things. You begin to sense that every person carries the same inner kingdom, even if they are unaware of it. Compassion grows naturally because you recognize the divine spark in others. You begin to feel guided, not by external rules, but by an inner wisdom that rises from a place deeper than thought. This wisdom aligns with the hermetic principle of correspondence, which teaches that the inner and the outer reflect each other. When the inner kingdom awakens, the outer world becomes a mirror of harmony, clarity, and purpose. Reflect for a moment. Have you ever felt an inner guidance that seemed wiser than your rational mind? Have you ever sensed a truth within you that felt older than your thoughts, as if it came from a deeper realm? These experiences are glimpses of the kingdom. Write in the comments if you have felt moments like this. Sharing your experience may help others recognize their own inner awakening. As we continue, we will uncover why Jesus revealed this message at a time when external authority dominated spiritual life, and how understanding this teaching can liberate your consciousness in ways that are both profound and practical. And remember, the most powerful revelation is still waiting for you at the end of this journey, where everything will come together in a way that may transform the very foundation of your spiritual understanding. When you recognize that the kingdom of heaven is an inner reality, you begin to understand why Jesus' message was so revolutionary and so threatening to the structures of his time. If heaven is within, then no institution, no authority, and no external power can claim ownership over your spiritual destiny. This is why great scholars such as Rudolf Bultmann argued that Jesus' teachings were centered not on creating a religion, but on awakening the human being to a new dimension of existence. The kingdom was not a reward to be granted, it was a truth to be realized, and this realization required no temple, no intermediary, no ritual, only awareness. This is the essence of spiritual liberation. Now imagine how different your life would be if you lived each day knowing that the divine lives in your very core. Think of how your choices, your relationships, your purpose, and even your struggles would shift if you knew that the highest truth is not above you but within you. The philosopher Jacob Needleman wrote that humanity suffers from a spiritual amnesia, forgetting its own depth and power. Jesus' message about the inner kingdom is the antidote to this amnesia. It reminds you that you are more than your fears, more than your past, more than your limitations. You carry within you a spark of the eternal, a connection to something infinitely greater than yourself. But this realization is not passive. It transforms everything. When you become aware of the inner kingdom, your life begins to reorganize itself around truth. You start to see that suffering often arises from resisting the deeper wisdom within you. You notice that whenever you move away from your inner truth, you feel fragmented, but when you align with it, you feel whole. This inner alignment becomes your compass. It is not about perfection, but about authenticity. The more you return to this inner center, the more peace, clarity, and purpose emerge naturally. This is what the mystic Saint John of the Cross meant when he wrote that the soul illuminated from within walks in luminous darkness, guided not by external signs, but by inner certainty. Think about this. If the kingdom is within, then every moment of your life becomes an opportunity to reconnect with it. Even challenges become meaningful because they reveal the places where you have forgotten your inner truth. The hermetic tradition teaches that every obstacle contains a hidden lesson, a key to deeper understanding. When you approach your struggles with awareness, they no longer diminish you, they refine you. This mirrors the teachings of Jesus, who often turned the focus inward, encouraging people to transform the heart before transforming the world. True change begins within, and only then radiates outward. Consider how this understanding might influence your daily life. Moments of silence become sacred, because they allow you to listen to the whisper of the inner kingdom. Acts of compassion become powerful, because they reflect the divine nature within you. Even your emotions become teachers, guiding you toward what needs healing, understanding, or release. The inner kingdom is not a distant paradise. It is a living presence that shapes your thoughts, your choices, and your destiny. But here lies the great mystery, the final truth that brings everything together. The kingdom within you is not separate from the kingdom within all things. When Jesus said the kingdom is within you, he was not speaking only of the individual, but of a universal reality. Your inner light is connected to the light in all creation. This idea is reflected in the writings of the scholar Houston Smith, who emphasized that spiritual traditions across the world, despite their differences, point to a single underlying truth. The divine presence permeates everything. When you awaken to the kingdom within, you begin to perceive the sacredness of all life. You see the divine in others, in nature, in the quiet moments, and even in the challenges that shape your soul. And here is the most powerful revelation of all. When you awaken to the kingdom within, you become a channel through which that kingdom enters the world. This is the deeper meaning behind Jesus' teaching. Heaven is not merely a destination, it is a state of consciousness capable of transforming reality. When you embody the inner kingdom, you carry peace where there is conflict, clarity where there is confusion, and compassion where there is suffering. You become a living expression of the divine. This is the true power of understanding that heaven is within you. It is not a passive truth, it is a calling. Imagine humanity awakening to this truth, people realizing that the divine is not distant, not exclusive, not hidden behind walls of doctrine, but alive in every soul. Imagine the transformation that would follow, relationships rooted in compassion, societies guided by wisdom, individuals living with purpose and meaning. This is not fantasy. It is the vision Jesus pointed to when he spoke of the kingdom, and it begins with you. So ask yourself now, are you ready to explore this inner kingdom? Are you ready to awaken to the truth that has been within you all along? Share your reflections in the comments. Your words may inspire someone else to begin their own journey inward. With this understanding, you have reached the heart of the message. The kingdom of heaven is within you, waiting to be awakened, lived, and shared with the world. Thanks for looking.